Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Omnia Performance Podcast with myself, Fergus Crawley, with
myself, Jonny Payne,
and with
Dan Wallace.
Today we are going to go through two episodes with Mr. Dan Wallace to my right here. For those of you listening, you've just got to imagine a man to my right. And in episode one, we're going to discuss Dan's career as an Olympic swimmer and eventually pulling gold on home turf in Glasgow in the Commonwealth Games, which is about as exciting as I think a swimming career can really get. And I mean that with an undertone of bias towards liking to do lots of things and being an average swimmer. So moving into episode number 2, we will discuss life after being an Olympian and focusing your childhood on such a sport where it's such a disciplined existence. And you're just going to have to listen to both of them to understand what that entails. So before we dive into part 1, we would like to request a couple of simple things from you, which is first and foremost to hit follow or subscribe, depending on what platform you're listening on. Make sure to rate and or review the show, share this episode or an episode previously with a friend, and check out all of the links and things in the description, as we would love to see your face pop up somewhere on the website, social media, etc., etc. So, going into today, Dan, hello, how are we?
I'm good, thanks for having me.
You are just back up in Scotland, aren't you?
Just back up in Scotland from a few years down in London. And yeah, enjoying being back home, being in Edinburgh, being by the sea, makes me happy.
Why does being by the sea make you happy? Are you okay at swimming or something?
I enjoy swimming now and then. It's been a big part of my life. A lot more in the pool, but now these days, yeah, I like to get a bit more cold. So North Bear kind of fits that.
It's very in vogue.
Usually goes the other way, doesn't it? The older you get, the more you're like, do you know what, I'd rather be a bit warmer and more comfortable.
Speak for yourself, Jonny, just because you like whiskey and blankets.
Dan, do you like whiskey and blankets?
Yeah, it helps you warm you up after your swim, so I like both.
In their place.
Everything has its rightful place. Yeah. So, growing up in Scotland, you have a myriad of sports to choose from. That's one of my favourite things about Scotland. I think we can probably all agree is that the world is your oyster. Whilst it's a cold, wet, miserable one, you have access to hills, the sea, flat roads, hilly roads. There's everything to go at. And you chose swimming. Why was that?
It's a very good question. Well, I did a lot of other sports growing up. Did rugby, football, athletics, swimming. I was terrible at 3 of them. I was okay at one of them. So yeah, kind of like over time, I realised that swimming was something. I was always really comfortable in the water. That's a big reason that a lot of people don't pick swimming as a child, is that maybe they're not super comfortable in the water. But I was always comfortable. I was taught quite early. My parents were both keen to get me, an avid swimmer from a young age, and that was just about kind of almost like a safety thing, to be honest. And I trained, or I swam with my 3 siblings at the time. It was very much just a family thing, get us out the house, keep us busy. And as I said, I did do a few other sports along the way, and then swimming kind of just became more of a passion than other ones. And it kind of just snowballed from there, to be honest. I never looked at it as something that I wanted to pursue as a career. I just enjoyed to do it with my friends and my family, to be honest.
At what point did it switch from being kind of a family affair to being competitive then?
Yeah, I can kind of almost remember the moment exactly. And I was around about 15 years old, and I was training down in a very small club in the Scottish borders in a place called Duns ASC, who've actually produced quite a few Olympians, which is very unique because they're a club of about 50 members. So there's myself, Ewan Dale, who swam in 2008 Olympics, and there's a few coaches that have gone on to coach at Olympics. So pretty good turnout, I guess, from that club. So that's kind of where it started, and I was about 15 years old, and I had never really won any great medals at Scottish age group championship level before, and I was invited to go along to a training camp for kind of like up and coming under 16 athletes, under 16 swimmers. And I remember going there and blowing everybody out of the water in training. So I realised that I was training harder and I was training better and I was giving more dedication than anyone else there. And I just kind of switched to being like, okay, then if I'm training better than these guys, I can maybe start to do better when it comes to competition. And then I think that was in December. January came around and there was a Scottish national competition, and I remember that's the first time I'd ever made the podium, first time I'd ever seen those results. So then I realised that, I'm working hard, I'm enjoying it. Why don't you maybe take this a little bit more seriously, because I think you could do quite well here. So it was around about 15, kind of had that light bulb moment. It was really just a reflection of seeing the results from the training I was doing. As I said, the small town in the Scottish borders, we were training maybe 5-6 times a week, but I wasn't getting much racing practice. So being able to see the hard work actually come to fruition was the belief that I needed that maybe this is something I could be quite good at.
Yeah, because you probably need that opportunity to compare yourself to those around you. And you're like, and by the sounds of it, you had oh shit, I'm fucking good at this.
Well, I wasn't never winning, but I was like, yeah, maybe I could be good at this. Keep this going.
Very modest,
and you can
modest
imagine.
answer, isn't it? I bet he was 16, like, fucking yes, look at you, animal.
Full Arnie poses in the mirror.
On the lane road, like, let's go. But like, if you saw me as a 15-year-old kid, I was this tiny little skinny guy. Like, I had no physical attributes that would either make you think, oh, he's going to be a great swimmer. I was tall and I worked hard and I enjoyed it, and that was kind of where it started. But yeah, I think it is important to kind of see the results or have the opportunity to go head to head to someone else. If you're trying to go down that competitive avenue, which I think I was, swimming is obviously a competitive sport, it's good to have the opportunity to race against others, because at that age, like, everyone is matured differently. Everyone's had, like, maybe someone has just started swimming, or just started their sport. You want to be able to have those opportunities to kind of just compare yourself and kind of see where you stand. And if you enjoy the competitive side of things, or if you do well, then that kind of spurs you on to continue. And that's kind of what happened for me.
As part of that, mate, when you sort of had that opportunity to compare yourself against the skill and or the physicality of others, how did you cope with that competition then? Because there must have been a psychological, it sounds like you very positively, but there must have been a psychological element to that where you're like, because some people could get into that situation and go, oh God, this is overwhelming. People are looking at me. There's all these other people in the pool who might be better than me, and kind of choke a little bit. But it sounds like the opposite, either that or you just didn't really conceive of that.
Yeah, I just think that I was always really well suited for the high pressure situations, and I never really had that many at that age. So when I went to my first big meet and I did okay, I was like, I like the energy, I like the pressure here. I went to my second one, I did a bit better, and I realised that maybe I'm quite well suited for those kind of high pressure situations and the competitive environment, the competitive arena. And I think that's because from an early age I adapted that mindset of, even when I was at training, it's just a normal training session, right? I was there to race, I was there to compete.
Okay.
Whether it was against myself, doing better times than I did last week, or racing the guy next to me, that was my whole approach to training. So the competitive environment for me was almost natural, because that's just the mindset that I had every single day. I went to training to be the best there, in a way.
Yeah.
It wasn't win or lose. If I didn't win, I was upset. It wasn't that. I enjoyed the competitiveness. Even if I was getting beat, I enjoyed the opportunity to push myself, and for the person next to you to push myself as well. Because I believe that you have to have someone there on your shoulder to push you forward. I think if there's no one there watching, I don't think I would do very well. But if there's someone next to you, maybe they're ahead of you, maybe they're behind you, that's gonna make the result of the race different. And I think I always loved that kind of environment.
Sounds like you were kind of ready for it as well, because it's a kind of a tender age, isn't it? 15, where you
very malleable, aren't you?
Yeah. Go either way. If you had a bad experience, that might have been the game over, the whole thing.
And that's the thing, and sometimes it did go badly. And I remember the first Scottish age group championships I went to at kind of 15, I maybe got a couple of medals, and I was like, this is amazing. And then the next year, I remember I didn't get any medals, and I swam like 8 different events. I made the finals, but I was getting 4th, 5th, and 6th. And to most people, that might put them off. And I'm surprised it didn't put me off, to be honest. But I just liked to be involved in it at that point, and I still trusted the process, I guess, and I enjoyed the training, and I knew that next year, I'm going to get back on the podium, and I did. And it kind of then I had a few more successful runs at it. But yeah, even if I didn't win, it didn't put me off, and for some people it would. And I think that maybe I'm just a bit luckier. That's just kind of the way that I knew that wasn't the end. I knew that it was still going to be a few more chapters to go.
A word, mate, that you've used 8 or 9 times now that's really nice to hear is you've enjoyed it. You seem to have fun with the process, because again, going back to that 15-year-old you could be in that situation, and it doesn't sound like this happened at all. You might have had pressure from your parents or pressure from the club. You're a guy, we expect more of you and all the rest of it, but having lost a few or slipped back in the rankings didn't put you off. Do you think that's because you were just having fun as much?
I was just having fun. As I said, I joined the club from a young age when I was just swimming with my siblings, and I had quite a nice progression from it being very fun and family orientated to then me personally wanting to take it more seriously. I then moved into a larger club in Edinburgh that did take things more seriously, so I had quite a nice progression from you know, it just being something I did after school to something that I want to do to see how good I'll be at it. But the enjoyment was still there, and I'm kind of leaping forward to when I got to kind of the elite level. I spoke to a friend of mine, Michael Jameson, a few weeks ago. He was an Olympic silver medalist, Commonwealth silver medalist as well, and we just said, you know, that was, we look back in our career and we're like, that was just a bit of fun, wasn't it? We're like, yeah, it was just a bit of fun. So it was fun from the first day to the last day, and I made sure that was like my mantra, and that was always the root of why I was doing this was, I love to compete and I want to represent my country, but at the end of the day, like, it's just a bunch of my mates swimming every day and we're having a good time.
There's another question. Sorry, Fergus, I know you're probably itching to ask things, but I'm getting,
you greedy
getting,
prick.
getting right into it.
Talking to Mike.
Well, I'm thinking about sports that I might have done, combat sports and things like that, where it's singular, it's kind of solo. And swimming is, you know, you ultimately are responsible for the outcome. Clearly, you've got coaches and people around you, but it does sound like as well that you kind of saw everybody as being a team. You know, you get people around you that were with you on that journey. Is that fair to say, or is it?
Yeah,
or did
definitely.
you feel like it was you?
There's times when it's you, but I think, and I get that question all the time, like, is swimming an individual sport? And I think that 9 times out of 10, like on the day at those big meets, when the whistle goes, you're on your own. Yeah. But I was training anywhere between 20 and 30 hours a week, and none of that was on my own. That was all with my teammates and my
kind
coaches.
Of a way that everybody brought you to that point.
100%, yeah, and you sacrificed together, and it made you bond. And especially when I went to university, it was much more of a team-oriented atmosphere and environment, and I loved that because it made me. It was bigger than just myself. But when you're right, when it comes to those big competitions, those high pressure situations, like, it is kind of, you are on your own, but you've got the training and you've got the backing of your teammates, your support staff, your friends and family. So it was kind of like, create that support system around you so that you individually can go on to do well.
And when you pop out the other side, it's not just I won this, it's we won this.
Yeah, 100%. Definitely, that's kind of something I believed in from day one.
Yeah, it sounds like it, man. It's good to hear.
So when you had that moment where you realised that I can actually be good at this is something I'm going to pursue, and with that competitive mindset that's clearly innate in you, like that willingness to operate in a competitive arena without your ego being the only thing that matters, which means you can take a 5th place, a 6th place without thinking, I'm done. From that moment onwards, was success black and white, Olympics, nothing but?
No, it definitely wasn't. And this is something I speak about quite a lot. Especially at that age, like, I realised I wanted to be really good. I realised that I probably could be quite successful in sport, but there was never like a black and white end goal, like, okay, if I go to Olympics, that means I've reached the goal. It was like, if you give this 110% effort, let's just see how far you can go, and you'll know when you've reached that. There's not a defining title, there's not a medal, there's not an event you'll reach, but you'll just know when it happens. But then obviously, as I progressed in my career, I knew that top level could be the Olympics, that top level could be, World Championship medal, whatever it was. So along the way, I got a more clear idea of what success would look like. But from that decision at 15 years old to pursue swimming as something I wanted to be the best I could be at, there wasn't like, you have to win this medal to succeed. And I think I quite like that. There was never a hard stop in success. It was just see where it goes and enjoy it.
I like that, mate, because you're still describing that kind of 15-year-old in a way, aren't you? That kind of realization that you liked.
Got a young mind.
Yeah, well, I mean, that really is a realization that you loved it, realization that you could do something with it. The way that you were saying you're competing with yourself and being better than you maybe had been 2 days ago, that kind of thing, which fits into all our mindsets here anyway, is that I guess that if you had suddenly at 15 had this idea, I want to win the Olympics or whatever it might be, it's so big a stretch that generally people can't last that long. It surely has to be incremental, or at least if it isn't, if you were to try and do that big long thing, you'd spend a long time suffering. Even if you got there, it might not. I don't know, I think that would be a hard journey, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's too big. It's too big a goal too soon. You put the future on a pedestal, which means you stop enjoying the process of getting there. Which in a sport like swimming, you can't look too far in the future because you're just pool tile after pool tile after pool tile, and nothing but. So you need to enjoy that process. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to get the output you're looking for. But it sounds like you had as healthy a relationship with the sport as a teenager as anyone I've ever heard.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of getting. This is fucking weird.
Yeah, which is it's awesome, isn't it? But the question there is why? Do you think you were? Do you think you were born to swim, or do you think there's environmental factors, your parents, the club specifically?
I was born to swim.
Because you must be thinking now, how can I make sure that Poppy feels the same way about gymnastics?
Yeah, so my daughter's a British champion. Oh God, she'll correct me if I'm wrong. 2 times over Scottish champion.
Wow.
X amount of times. Real good gymnast.
Amazing.
And what's interesting about it, hopefully I'll get back to the microphone. What's interesting about it, from your perspective, I'd like to hear, is that you said initially your parents took you and it was just a family thing. It was just like, let's get Dan active, let's do something that, like you say, make sure he's safe in the water and all that. That was my introduction to swimming. I just didn't have I didn't go on from there at all. I'm shit at swimming, by the way. but that was kind of what I'm saying is most people, if they've been swimming as kids, it's because they've gone through that kind of family process and all the rest of it. We did the same thing with Poppy, is that it was a case of we just wanted her to be physical, wanted her to do something that kind of covered a lot of physical aspects, like she'll be moving, she'll be jumping, she'll be turning, and surely it should be fun. And it was never anything other than that for us as parents. And she found a competitive edge in it, and she really enjoys the community, sees herself as a gymnast, and sometimes it's frustrating for her. I'm sure it was for you many times, but so she'll come home hard on herself because she didn't do what she wanted to do on that day.
Yeah.
But actually she'll come home with these medals and then just hang them up, and then you say, where's your medal? Oh, I don't know where I put it. Because her relationship with it is not driven by this kind of overarching stick that says you must do. It's driven by her enjoyment of it, and it sounds like you're very much the same.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it just became, you touched on it there, like Poppy sees herself as a gymnast. Like I saw myself as a swimmer. It was part of my identity, and I was almost like proud of that. I definitely had an amazing childhood as a swimmer, and I had a very kind of happy and healthy relationship with the sport. And I think that because it was my outlet. So I was obviously in high school. And high school is a very stressful time, and everyone's kind of got their own thing going on. And I was really happy that I had something that I really cared about outside of school. It had nothing to do with my relationships or what I had going on at school time. It was like I knew I had something that I really cared about that I could do after school and obviously before school as well, because it starts pretty early. But I just enjoyed having that as part of my identity, and I loved the competitiveness, and it was a really healthy relationship, and it continued to be the whole way through. So I'm not sure what the defining factor of that was. I think that there's the natural competitiveness. I mean, I grew up with like 3 other siblings.
Yeah, there's maybe some of that.
So there was I was always like trying to won over someone, and I think that came from a really good place, and then that kind of passed over into sport, and it kind of maybe
Do any of your siblings swim?
So we all swam together, and just like everyone, people drop off and do different things. My brother went into rugby. My sisters, they were actually amazing swimmers as well, and they went into teaching as well. So swimming has been a massive part of our family. But it was interesting to see out of all of us, they all had different interests, and that was fine. And then my younger sister, who came along a bit later on, at that point I was starting to do quite well, and everyone's like, oh, is Lily going to be the next big thing swimmer? I was like, maybe. I'm not going to pressure her in any way. She's a fantastic swimmer and has really natural ability in the water, but she kind of stopped swimming about a year ago and now does netball and hockey, and I'm really happy about that, because she still has that same relationship with sport that I did. So there was never pressure, and there was maybe a little bit of pressure for her. Not that I ever put it on her or never tried to, that my brother's a really good swimmer, I'll have to be a good swimmer. There was never that. But she's a great swimmer. She's an all-round athlete, and I think that I can see her in getting the enjoyment out of sport that I did, and that's enough for me as her older brother.
Very cool.
So where did things start to move in the direction that ultimately got you to the Olympics? Because I know you ended up going to university in America, didn't you? And that's a process in and of itself that's quite challenging. Yeah. But this isn't in any way to discredit you going to university in America, but athletic collegiate sports, there was a period of time where if you were British, you got reasonable SATs and you were good at a sport, you're straight in and you were put to work. Is that kind of the process that you went through? Was it something you always wanted to do? Was America the place to be for development, or was it just the natural next step?
I think that, so going back to when I was maybe about 16, 17, maybe had 1 year where I didn't do very well. What I was very good at was looking back on areas that I can improve in. The first one was my strength. As I mentioned before, I was the skinniest little guy, so I knew that I had to get bigger and stronger. That was the first thing that I changed, and the first area that I improved on, that allowed me to even get into the point where I was having conversations with the universities, because at 16 there was, I could have been good, but I don't think I would have got a scholarship anywhere. Put on a bit of muscle, put on a bit of strength. Swimming started to become a bit more of a more rounded success for me. I then looked into the way that America came up, honestly, was I was looking around at other universities. I knew that I wanted to be in a performance environment. and there wasn't really anyone in the UK swimming my specific events that was like challenging for world medals or anything. They were all going to the Commonwealth Games, they were making Olympics, but they weren't making the finals. And it's no disrespect to anybody that I raced with in the UK, but there was no one that was challenging world records. And to be honest, at that point I was like, if I'm taking this seriously, I want to shoot for the stars. I literally naively just Googled where the fastest swimmer in the world was for my event. And at the time, it was the University of Florida. His name was Ryan Lochte. He was Michael Phelps' arch rival. Still is the world record holder for the 200 individual medley, which is one of my events. Googled where he trained. University of Florida came up. Emailed the head coach and was like, I'm Dan, this is what I'm doing. I didn't know about the process at all. That's not how you do it.
This is so fucking analytical for an 18-year-old. This is you love swimming.
I was like, I just need to be.
We've kind of leaned away from this idea that he's a competitive animal. What he's saying is, I zoned in on the number one and I went to find him.
I just hunted him down. So
that's so cool.
Yeah,
just the approach is phenomenal. I love it.
And then I get an email back from Greg Troy, who was an amazing coach and the US Olympic coach in 2012, and he emailed me back saying, listen, Dan, like, you sound great, obviously love the attitude that you've got here, but your times are maybe just slightly off. So my mum sees the email and she goes, nah. Just has a couple of glasses of wine, emails him back being like, listen, Gregory, Dan's going to be the next big thing. He's going to be amazing for your team, this and that. And obviously this Scottish lady, keyboard warrior, and he was like, whoa, okay, he can come.
Scottishness came right through that.
Yeah. We really showed our roots. And he said yes. And I then went out there, and that's kind of how it happened, which is bizarre. And it's definitely not.
Did you have to do SATs?
Yeah, I had to go.
Okay.
He then goes, go. If you pass your SATs and all that, you go through the actual process, because this is not how it usually works, Dan. Then we can accept you. So I did all that, passed them, and I'd never even been to the US. I'd never even been over there before.
So when he said about this SATs, your mum didn't get back on it. No, listen to me. My Dan doesn't do SATs.
She tried, but it's like, no, you have to do that. I was like, okay.
Consider this email a pass.
So getting there, because from what I've gathered, I mean, let's use the example of a college in America's gym. Yeah. I've been to one in Nevada. I used it as my last set of 120 for triples before the powerlifting world champs in Las Vegas in like 2010, 11, whenever it was, years ago. It was later than that, but anyway, irrelevant. And the college gym was better than any private gym that exists within the UK, and that is standard. So that alone makes my perception of training for a sport at an American college a completely different thing to doing it over here at a university. Because when I joined Durham, there was one squat rack for the entire university that you could access if you weren't in a first or second performance team, which was hockey, rugby, lacrosse, football, and tennis. And the rest of them, it was a scrap. It was like people bidding on the side of the street, like, please take me on the bus for a space in the performance gym. So it just, the standard, the discrepancy was enormous, and that's always kind of really bothered me. And you see that high school football team with 60,000 people watching them on a Friday night, and then Edinburgh struggle to get 9,000 for their home games, and you just wonder, where is that discrepancy? But you experienced that singular focus in one of these environments. So based on your experience versus the experience of people I'm sure you've competed with that went to UK universities, how is it different?
And it's totally different. And I realised that the facilities and opportunity was different pretty early on. That was the reason that I looked into the US. Like, I'd seen the gyms in Stirling and Loughborough at the time back in 2010, and they weren't special. And I thought that's definitely a reason these guys aren't winning, these medals. And now going back, those facilities have now really improved. I was in Stirling last week, and they've got a great facility now. But at the time, none of that made me very excited. So I looked into the US, and you're right. Like, the gym we had at University of Florida was like unbelievable. They had every single equipment 10 times over. They had different, very prestigious weight coaches for every different team. They had so much support staff, the nutrition, the rehab. They had everything there. And as I said, I'd never even been over there to visit. So this was all new to me when I arrived. But I had done a bit of research and looked into it. But just the opportunity there, and we touched on it before as well, like around the team environment. And that was something that I picked up on really early on. Something that I realized they didn't really have over here as much was, these high performance facilities in Bath and Loughborough, Stirling, and so on. they were very individually focused, and as much as sport is an individual team, I knew I needed to be in a team environment.
People around you.
Yeah, so going to University of Florida Gators, they're all about the team, because for them it's like the NC2A championships. They want to do well as a team. So the whole training, the whole season is revolved around team results, and I like that. So I went out there, the facilities blew me away, the camaraderie and the energy of as teammates, me wanting you to do just as well as I am doing was something I never saw over here in the UK at the time, and I thrived in those situations. So seeing the facilities, realising that I'm surrounded by individuals that want me to do well, just kind of catapulted my career, and that's when it really started to kind of take traction and do really well.
Not to be critical or point fingers, but I've heard from people that have attended Loughborough that essentially there's a lot of assessing who's on number one, and then all of the eggs of the department go into that number one, and everybody else gets left behind.
I think it's almost a matter of just a resource. Sounds like the difference between the two setup. Well, you've described it yourself. In actual fact, is that the focus on the team as a whole. Some of that's clearly cultural, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The way that the whole system's set up to kind of allow sports to thrive over there. And some of it's got to be about financial resource. I think it's, Loughborough and anecdotal examples. And I've worked in these universities, and that there's only a certain amount of resource that you've got, even as teaching staff. You're talking about having a strength and conditioning coach for each kind of individual thing, and a nutritionist. This big multidisciplinary team.
Yeah.
Whereas usually in the British system, you've got maybe one guy wearing three hats, or one coach that's actually spread across lots and lots of different sports, and therefore doesn't have a really decent specificity in one. And again, as you say, not to speak against anybody, because the setup has improved and these things have been recognised, but there are very different cultures. But it seems to be that once again, you've kind of managed to find yourself in a situation that you're going to thrive in. Because if it was the other way around, let's pretend that you were in the situation we've just described, but did have the focus of the department on you. They've decided that Dan's our man, and we're going to focus on him. That probably wouldn't have worked for you, because then you would have been singularly, we're going to keep you in this bubble and make you be our athlete. And after a short amount of time, it sounds like you might have said, yeah, but without that whole kind of larger environment around me that I can thrive in, none of this is going to work for me.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that I've been asked the question before, if you were to do it again, would you go anywhere different? And to be honest, I think I would go straight back to University of Florida, or at least an environment like that. I think that if I had been focused on more than anyone else, I wouldn't have enjoyed that. I needed to be almost like an equal, and I needed to prove myself that I was going to become kind of a big fish. So I think that...
Good pun, very good.
There we go. And like...
I nearly said, did you feel the fish out of water? I'm going to leave that.
Don't do it, Johnny, don't do it. You're very efficient.
Yeah, there we go. That's a good one.
No, we're done it, yes.
But looking at the resources, I mean, you touched on it there, but like high school American football stadiums being filled. Like we were filling, as a university, we were filling the stadium. 70,000 fans were coming, all paying. That's just cash.
To watch you guys swim.
No, not to watch us swim. Sorry, I say me. I meant the football team. The football team was selling out 70,000 tickets every single Saturday.
But then that's
the basketball team was selling out 15,000. The gymnast, it was a profitable business, and that money was going straight back into the athletic department, and to so every year, 18 months, there was a new building being built for the gymnasts or the swimmers or the football team, because there was so much money coming into it, whereas like universities here, like they don't have as much funding or resources coming in, because they're maybe not, it's not a business as such. Over there it was.
Even the disciplines within that, looking at our trade and all the rest of it, the strength and conditioning coaches there then have the opportunity for funding to come in. They can do CPD, they can keep on top of things, they can be, they can educate themselves consistently. And again, not to say that people here aren't or weren't doing that, but knowing the system well enough, I know that it's just not set up for that. You would be, you talked about Duns, where you started out being kind of almost lucky that they had a little bit of a history there, but that would have been about a certain amount of passion in swimming. It wouldn't be because anybody was giving them money. It
was all kind of.
But imagine if Duns had an injection of American money. How many Olympians and Commonwealth Games athletes would have come out of that little swimming club? Yeah, you ask.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I'd love to know. I reply. it really, but this whole conversation brings up the nature nurture debate big time, because you clearly I mean, I flippantly said it, but you clearly were innately born to swim. And then you went into an environment that really brought that to life and then found yourself on the world stage. But managing the pressure of going to university where your mission was to chase down Lochte and knowing that that's why you went there, how did you manage being at an age where, whilst you were clearly very, very mature, head on your shoulders to be viewing things in the way that you did, how did you manage the pressure of being that team environment, working towards the big, hairy, scary goal, which was Commonwealth Games, Olympics? Because there's a lot going on there, and whilst you support the guy next to you, when it comes to the time to perform, you want to look out for number one.
Yeah, I think that going back to the environment I was in and the choices that I made and the teams I was involved in, I think I was very, very lucky, because what the University of Florida did really well was they did focus on that international arena as well. So they wanted to send all their swimmers to the Olympics, whether they're from Poland, UK or America. So I had a really good system there where there was definitely a priority for succeeding outside the NC2A tournament and the NC2 kind of championship. So for me, I guess I took the pressure off because I knew that I was surrounded by ones that were doing it as well. So I learned from Ryan Lochte as much as I could every single day, seeing what he was doing. We had a team of like 40 of us. So, and some people look at that almost in a negative way, like there's too many of you for, you can't all do well, and maybe that's right. Maybe the coaches can't give us as much attention, but you throw a lot of us in, give us the same kind of training, and some of us will do well. And I knew that I just had to prove myself, and I really still enjoyed it. And when I went out to University of Florida, I almost got knocked back a few pegs, because when I left at 18 years old in Scotland anyway, I was, definitely one of the better junior swimmers, kind of breaking into the senior ranks, feeling quite confident that I was coming towards the top of the rankings in Scotland. I didn't really like that. I wanted there to be way more ahead of me. So when I went out to University of Florida, I was then suddenly this tiny little person in, a big team that was doing well already. So there was no pressure originally. The pressure for me was just to prove that I belonged there. And then from there, did well and started to think about, okay, now that you're learning from the best in the world, you've now got to put that into action. You've got to take away, the hours you're spending with Ryan and with Greg Troy and these coaches and making the most of the facilities. There was that pressure to now deliver, but I think that it was just, I had that competitive drive, and again, there was no hard stop to what success looked like. But I knew that at that point, I'll make a world championship team. That'll be a tick. I'll make an Olympic team. That'll be a tick. So it was just still day by day. There was never, just because I was in a bigger environment and I had more opportunities, I didn't put pressure on that to have to do well. I just still tried to have the same mentality I did as when I was at Duns.
So what was the qualification process from there to GB, World Championships, to Commonwealth Games, to Olympics? Talk us through how that happened, and I assume the moments where you touched the wall and you, fucking hell, I've done it.
Yeah. So the way it worked was 2011 I went out to University of Florida. 2012 Olympics, I went to the trials, but I was never in the running for that. That was more of a learning opportunity. Yeah. 2013, I was then I was going to the World Championship trials, and there's the World Championships and there's the World University Games. The World University Games is almost like the B. If you don't make Worlds, you can go to World Unis, but you have to be on the selection criteria for that. So you have to be already approved from Team GB to be in the running for the World Universities. Okay. So I put my name forward for that in case I didn't make World Champs, and they said, "Oh, I actually don't think you're even in the conversation for World Unis. Like, I don't think you're quite there." Now I took that personally, and I was like,
"Where'd that go in your head?"
I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And fair enough, I hadn't done much that summer because I was still breaking from junior to senior. So maybe they're right in saying that. Anyway, I went to World Champ trials. I made the World Championship team. I skipped the World Uni team, made the World Championship team. Again, first senior competition, Barcelona. Went in there completely unranked, and I was like, if I get a best time, I'll be happy. Again, this is my first international competition, and then I managed to make the final, and I think I got 7th out of 8, so it's nothing to celebrate. But for me, it was like, I'm finally competing against, I'm in that final. I have a chance to win a medal. I'm finally in the conversation to bring back some hardware, which was amazing. So, and then from there, I went into 2014 Commonwealth Games. So at this point, I'm starting to figure out that I'm starting to, I guess, learn what it's like to compete on an international stage at a senior level, which is a big jump up from a junior level. So I was just every single year, every season, seeing more that I can learn. I was like a sponge. And then I went to 2014 and I'd had a really good year at University of Florida. And the way it works is when you're over in America, you actually swim short course yards, so 25 meter short course yard pool, so pretty small pool. Whereas at an Olympic level or an international level, it's 50 meters. So sometimes you can have swimmers that are really good short course. Maybe they're really dynamic and powerful around the walls and the starts. That wasn't me. I managed to get away with it as much as I could in America, but I knew that the bigger pool was where I was more suited. My swim speed, my endurance was what made me, I guess, successful. So no one really had their eyes on me coming into 2014. Even though I'd had a really good meet in America, I had a really good season in America, short course yards, they were like, oh no, he's an American short course yard swimmer, they're not going to worry about him. So I went into the Commie Games like kind of unranked, and you know, as you guys know, like I had an amazing meet there, and that's when I won my first ever international medal, and I loved it, and I was like,
I bet you did.
I can do this again.
Which, for anyone listening lacking context, a pretty good swim meet and an international medal was a gold medal on home turf at the Commonwealth Games as an unranked swimmer.
You've undersold that a little bit.
That is the holy trifecta of, oh yes, I have done this.
You did quite well.
Yeah.
You won it, didn't you?
but it was just a bit of fun, wasn't it?
It was just a bit of fun, and it goes back to that natural progression, like 2013 World Championships, going in there with no goals other than learning experience, into 2014 Commonwealth Games, kind of first time I knew that I could do well and rise into that occasion. And there was so much that happened in that competition, like the self-belief that I had. I remember I was in the, what they call the call room, the ready room, before you walk out to your race. And I'd actually had an amazing prelim swim, so you swim the heats and the finals. I'd broken the Commonwealth Games record in the morning, so I was like, all right, I'm on fire here.
So you were unranked going into the Commie Games, but going into the final, were people like, oh, there's something happening here?
So I qualified first into the final.
It wasn't a movie plot where you saved it all until...
No.
I still
I didn't plan any of it.
It's like, who's this guy? Wait a minute, he's just fucking smashed a record in the prelims.
So I'm in lane 4, stood in my seat like this, we're in a row, and every time I've been in that situation before, I've been like, oh, you know, Fergus will win, like he's won before, like, you know, Jonny will win, he's won before. Where I'm like, for the first time, I was like, I'm in lane 4, like, this is my race to win, or my race to lose, whatever. But every time I would doubt myself, oh, someone else will win. And then I was like, this is the first time in your life that you've got this real opportunity to be the guy that wins. Why not do that? And it's just literally a switch in my head. I was like, all right, I'm going in this race to win. There's now a hard goal of what success looks like in this race. Whereas my whole career before was like, just see how well you do. Just try your best.
That's an interesting switch though, mate, because, sorry to kind of cut you off there at the end, but it's interesting to hear that, because you would expect then that, well, you not expect, but the way that the commentary's gone so far, your story is that you're kind of in there, you're very much competing against yourself. You're very not. That's the first time I heard you say directly, you're like, no, I'm the fucking man here, you know. And actually, sometimes when people get that in their head, again, just in my experience with fighters especially, if somebody says, I can win, I am definitely the man, usually that's when they get their heads knocked off.
Yeah.
Because they forget, not humility, they forget to focus in on the job and start thinking about sort of thinking outside of themselves a little bit. I'm going to go real hard. You go too hard, you push too hard, your stroke goes off and your skill sort of degrades a little bit. But it sounds like that was almost a trigger for you to step up even more. Yeah,
it was the first real opportunity I had to win a medal. Like the year before I made the final, it was just to be there and get experience. This time round, I just broken the record in the morning. I'm like, all right, it's pretty black and white. You've got a chance to win a medal here. And if you look at the race, you wouldn't think that was my approach, because I turned it halfway and I was dead last. And I was like, shit. I've dropped the ball pretty hard here. And then I'm swimming through, I'll break down the race for you. Swimming through at halfway, I'm dead last. The crowd must be thinking, who the hell is this guy in for? And then I'm swimming through the breaststroke. I climb up the ranks slightly. I turn with 3 lengths to go, and I turn in 3rd position. And in swimming, you can't really see what's going on, but I push off the wall underwater, and I can actually see the 2 guys ahead of me, Sebastian Rousseau and Tommy Fraser-Holmes. I trained with Seb in University of Florida, so I knew he's going to struggle at the end because he's not got the endurance that I had. But I also knew I was in bronze position, and I'm pushed off under the water, and I go, oh, bronze is pretty good. Like, you know, we all bronze is pretty good, right?
It is, to be fair.
Bronze is good.
It's like you're looking for support, as if,
But then I was like, bronze is good, and then I'm like,
but I can beat Sebi.
I was like, I can catch these guys, and I will. If I don't give everything I have, I'll be disappointed because 99% of the crowd are rooting for me. So it went from, you know, accepting bronze for like a millisecond to being like, nah, you're winning gold. You're absolutely going for it. And I just emptied the tank on that second length of breaststroke, and it was basically just a race to the end, and it worked out in my favour. But like, I can see the race and I can play it through my head pretty clearly.
When you're in that moment, then, just that's really interesting me. Just that particular bit there is that you see this guy ahead of you, Seb. Poor Seb, I feel bad for him.
I know. I love Seb. Seb, you're listening. Hope you're doing well.
So you see Seb ahead of you, and you know that you can probably maintain your pace to the end, whereas you know his pace is just gradually going to start to dip. So confidence there from that moment, or was it just a case of, right, stop thinking about this and fucking head down? Or was that enough analysis? You had the time to...
Yeah, and that's the thing, like, looking back at those previous years where I wasn't winning medals, but I was gaining experience. You gain experience about how you can do well in those arenas, but you also gain experience about the competition. You understand a bit more. At that point, I knew Seb, and there was 2 other Scottish boys in the race. There was an English boy. I kind of knew what their race styles were like, and you play into that. So yeah, I said I turned the last at halfway, but like I knew I was always going to be towards the end. Maybe not that far back, but I was going to be towards the end. So I was still confident. I was still in control the whole way. Mm-hmm. But I knew that I had to then make every move perfect from there on out. But yeah, there's this mentality, like when you're swimming, and you probably get it in running as well, like if you see yourself catching somebody up, it's like you got the turbos on it. It's easier. But in the hindsight, and the flip side, sorry, if you feel someone catching you up, it's like you feel like a ton of bricks. Yeah. So Seb obviously felt me catching him up. I felt me catching him up, and it just worked out really well for one of us and not very well for the other.
Yeah.
How did it feel? Home turf, gold medal, and Commonwealth Games. The privilege is you get to fly.
I'm excited right now. Just sat here again, and I remember seeing
you get to fly the Scotland flag.
Like living it again a little bit.
Yeah,
it's not GB. It's Scotland, which is it's hot, and on home turf as well. Like that is the perfect storm.
Yeah,
yeah.
And you touch the wall with a gold. Like that must have been.
Did you know when you hit the wall, or did you have to touch the wall and then shit? Was there milliseconds in it?
There wasn't milliseconds in it, but the way it worked, I was breathing to my right and Seb was to my left. So that last length, all I could see were saltire flags, just like fucking move on. Like,
it fucking is a movie, man.
So I was like, just keep going, put your head down, touch the wall, and then I was like, oh, thank God, that's great. And I was like, I need to celebrate. So I got my rope and I think I shouted like for freedom or something like that, which is not very smart to do during a referendum. But you don't practice that. They don't teach you what to do when you win an international medal.
And if you are practicing, you're one of those people that's going to get your head knocked off because you go into it thinking you're the big man.
Yeah, exactly. So that was
how unfortunate that you don't get
a experience for me.
With a voice break. Oh no, it's all over on TV.
But yeah, it was the first real time where I got to like really soak in that kind of the success. And what was great about home turf was like I could see my family, my friends in the crowd. That was really cool to experience, and that was I guess like my first taste of like winning an international medal. And I was like, I want to keep doing this for as long as I can. And that's kind of really what kind of sprung me forward in my career, and probably the highlight, if not one of the best times.
So Olympics next.
Yeah, Olympics next.
What was the transition from 2014 to 2016? What did that look like? Was there... You've just hit gold on home turf. You say you want to do this for the rest of your life. Did that all manifest as confidence for the Olympics, or did going another ring up the ladder then sort of make you think, oh, right, back to the reserved, humble version of myself that is standing on the blocks, looking around and making a calculated decision on where you are in the placings? Because a lot of conventional advice and understanding would be that unless you're standing on the blocks thinking you're going to win, there's no point in being there. Mm. But the whole way through this swimming career, you sound very deliberated and practical about how to approach everything. So how did you translate that into the prep from Commonwealth Games to the Olympics?
Yeah, so 2014, 2016, 2 years. Essentially what I did was, whatever I was doing was working to an extent, but I knew that, from commies to the Olympics is another step up. I would have the Americans and all sorts to deal with. So I had to just keep doing what I was doing, but if I could kind of, just ramp up even more. So to be honest, things didn't really change. We went to 2015, which was World Championships, so I got another taster of, you know, kind of where I was sitting internationally. We ended up winning a gold medal there in a relay. So I realised that, you know, if we have another good relay next year, that means that not only can I go to the Olympics possibly if I make the team again, but we could possibly, we could argue for a medal there. So every year, as I said, was just a slight progression, me understanding where I was sitting within the world rankings, what I needed to do to progress. So I just kept doing what I was doing, to be honest. I didn't put any more pressure on it. If anything, I had more fun before 2014, 2016 than I did my entire career, because I knew that things were doing well. I was getting the results, I was getting to have those moments of success, but I was still just training the exact same way with the same mentality. You know, the team really helped me stay grounded, for sure. I loved being involved in a team environment, as I mentioned before. So that made me take any pressure off. I didn't think too much about, I need to make the Olympics. It was like, if I just keep doing what I'm doing with my teammates, that we're all going to do really well. I'm obviously on this trajectory to possibly make the Olympic team. So it was all just, as I said, I kind of just enjoyed those 2 years more than I did any other kind of part of my career.
Strolling onto the Olympic Park, feelings, fear, apprehension, concern, confidence, what was it?
Excitement. After party's going to be good. I mean, the Olympic Village is amazing. It's a really cool place, and I love that. People say, what was the highlight of the Olympics? Like, you know, what, standing on the podium? Sure. Being in part of the Olympic Village was an amazing experience, and I'm not sure if you guys have spoken to any Olympians before, but
good friend of mine is Ian Mackey, and Ian has talked about this before as well. Is that kind of camaraderie and the fact that you're somewhere special that's kind of only you're really going to experience.
It's like
Nick Simmons said the same when I spoke to him, and he said it's something he misses a lot. That's so cool. Can't do that again.
It's the most like VIP club group you can be in, like to be an Olympian, to be then in the village and see it all firsthand. And it's like tiny little things, like you go into the food court and it's like obviously all the best food you can get there, and it's all buffet style and it's all really nutritious stuff. But we're sat on these big tables, and there's a few, like 4 or 5 swimmers. We all sit down, and there's a group of athletes, and we're just like, they just start speaking to us, and I'm like, because everyone kind of sticks to their cliques. That's what you normally think, but it's not like that. We're speaking to the Kenyan running team, the USA basketball team. Like, everyone's just mingling, and I think it's because we're all. This is how I describe it. We're all there as equals to do the same thing, and that is to represent our countries at the highest level, right? Yeah. So everyone's. It doesn't, Is
it immediate respect? Like, essentially, everybody has earned the right to be here, and even if you don't win, you're still.
There's very few people in the world are going to know how it feels to feel what you're feeling. Yeah. But all those people that do know that are right there.
Yeah. So it was an amazing. It was an amazing response and environment to be a part of, and that's what blew me away. It was like, and I was like, wow, we're at the Olympics, and we're all at the Olympics. Some of us are going to win medals, some of us aren't, but you know what? We're all here. We've all earned the right to be here, and I felt that physically, and I saw that immediately. So that was kind of amazing experience and it kind of hit home. Like, all right, you're now at the Olympics. Maybe had a day or two to soak it in, and then it was like, you're here to kind of do a job. So the pressure did start to pile on then, but I was embracing it.
What did the job look like? Because you gave a very clearly remembered, weird way of phrasing it, but is that grammatically correct? Clearly remembered? Well remembered, that's a more conventional phrase.
Clearly remember something.
Yeah, okay, anyway, could have just moved past it. What a mess. Nonetheless, you remembered the last race very well in Glasgow. So, the race.
Yeah.
What happened?
So I had 2 races at the Olympic Games. I had the 4x200 freestyle relay, which in Glasgow the Scots won silver. In 2015 Worlds, Team GB had won gold. But this year we knew the Americans had a better team. They had Michael Phelps back from retirement. Probably heard of him.
That's not a memo you want to receive, is it?
No, Phelps is back.
Usain Bolt's back, guys. No.
So we knew we had our work cut out. We knew that other team, everyone there was better than they were the year before. I was lucky enough to be on the team. I was in so the way it works, you have 4 swimmers in the morning. If you're lucky enough, you can have a brand new team in the evening, or you maybe you rest your 2 best guys in the morning and to join them in the final. So I swam well enough in the morning to be included in the evening. I think we actually went in first position, but we knew that the Americans would have a brand new team in the evening. So we went in there. I think our first swimmer touched in 5th. I dove in 4th. No, sorry, he must have tucked in fourth. I dove in fourth. I brought us up to third. And then we had someone finish off, James Guy, and brought us up to silver position behind the Americans. Now, the Americans were maybe a little bit further ahead of us, but second, third, fourth, and fifth were like neck and neck. But I felt really happy with it. And this is when it goes back to is swimming an individual sport or a team. Like, we were there representing and working together as a team, but I knew that I had an individual role to fill.
Yeah.
So me diving in fourth position, technically out of medal contention, for me to bring myself into bronze medal position, I felt like, I've done my job there. I've done a pretty good leg. And then our last guy, Jimmy Guy, brought us up to silver. So it worked out really well. Our team did fantastic. We broke the British record, the best we'd ever done. And to win that silver medal was incredible. And you look at the American teams, they had Michael Phelps, they had Ryan Lochte. So it was a cool experience for me because I was racing some of my teammates.
It's essentially gold.
Yeah,
isn't it?
It is.
Well,
you can look at it like that.
I think you're about to say as much, but there's another part of this is that the Commonwealth was, it's again, we've just established it's not really a solo effort, but in that particular moment it is a solo effort. But you're also saying in this, at the Olympics, you had the opportunity to do as much as you could for the team.
Yeah.
So kind of wherever it ended up, correct me if I'm wrong, wherever it ended up, as long as you'd gotten in, done exactly what you could for the team, and then left the rest in the hands of the rest of the team and Lady Luck, you were going to be quite happy with that.
100%. Yeah. And assuming you obviously look at your times and your splits, and the time that I went in that final wasn't the best one I'd ever done, but it was good enough, and it was, I think, the second fastest split I'd ever done. And I thought that to do that at the Olympic Games when the pressure's on, you're in the final,
having swam that morning as well.
Having swam that morning was amazing. So you go around, you do your lap of honour, you get the medal, but then it's straight back to work. Like, swimming is 8 days of swimming. If you're lucky, you've got several events. I had 2 events, so the next morning I was back up again for the Tour de Medley, which was my only individual race, and I was on cloud 9. I'd just won an Olympic silver medal, so I'm like, this is a free ride. Like, let's just really, really enjoy this one.
Before we break down the individual component, this is a village question.
Yeah.
And I hope I'm not the only person that's feeling compelled to ask it. But when you're done in the relay, do you get out to observe the rest, or do you stay in the water? Because I can imagine the difference in observation as a participant of a team of 4 outside of the pool versus inside the pool is a very different experience.
Yeah. So when you finish your actual leg of the relay...
Do you want to know that as well?
Yeah.
Do you know the answer?
I don't know. No.
Okay, good. I feel better. Proceed. Thank you.
When you finish your leg of the relay, say you go first, the lane up's not that big, so there's not space for you to stay. So you climb immediately out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then you're like...
I thought that, but
so then you're right behind...
I'm just thinking, I've seen pictures of people, it might just be in training though, I've seen pictures of faces as somebody's turning. Yeah. But so, yeah.
So you get right out, but then...
Well, yeah.
Carry on, Dan.
So you basically go from doing your role and being an individual competitor in the relay to then being like a supporter. So you're like about to climb in the blocks, and I'm like screaming in your face like, let's fucking go for this, like, let's go for this. So you get to you get to do your role within the team, and then you get to then become a supporter of the team straight away, which is really, really cool. And you get like a bird's eye view.
The adrenaline from getting out the pool and then watching the last guy go must be absolutely insane. Just giddy, like a child. When you're a child, you just get the urge to just run.
Yeah,
I can imagine that's what it feels like. Yeah. I'm having a good time. I'm gonna start running.
Yeah. And it's just like so loud. There's so much going on. Every team is screaming for their guy in the water. There's someone on the block about to dive in who's just feeling the pressure. But that was a really cool experience to have, and that's why I loved the relays, because it was you've got 3 other guys you're doing it with, so it made it a lot more special to have a memory like that where I was part of a relay that did really well, and to have a memory of the Commonwealth Games where it was individual. I feel like I've got the best of both worlds there.
Yeah, for sure, man. That sounds so.
But then
I'm just delighted with this conversation. Really
I'm glad.
And then individual. So
total
different ball game.
It's a really quick turnaround, and obviously I've just won an Olympic medal. I'm on cloud 9. I'm barely sleeping. I've got so much caffeine through my body. I need to then bring myself down, try and get some good rest, and back up again in the morning. So back up again in the morning. I think I'd made the final the year before at World Champs, so I knew that if I get top 8, get another Olympic final under my belt, that would be an amazing result. So get through the prelims, get through the semi-finals, and then I'm in the final with the world record holder, Ryan Lochte, Michael Phelps, we all know who he is, the Asian record holder, the Australian record holder, the Brazilian record holder, and then there's like me as well, and I'm just like, this is a fairy tale ending.
Did you feel like you belonged there? Because clearly you did belong there, but did you, like, you just named all these people, did you think, and why am I here? Or did you think, no, I'm here because I'm Dan fucking Wallace?
In a way. No, definitely did, because, I've just recited who these individuals are.
Yeah.
But when
they're probably reciting who you are.
Hopefully they are.
Yeah.
But when I'm stood behind the block, I don't care who they are. They're a number to me at that point. I can say I can hype them up now, but at the time I'm like, there's 3 guys to my right, there's 3 guys to my left. You know, it doesn't matter who they are. It doesn't matter that one of them is the greatest Olympian of all time. At that point, like, I need to treat them as equals, because if I think, oh, he's Phelps, he's gonna win, of course he's gonna win, and he did win. But
spoiler alert.
But I went into that as like
Michael
a free
Phelps
ride. It was a free ride for me, and I was just I was, kind of happy to be there, which maybe isn't the attitude you need or want at that time. But I knew that this was just another thing that I could say I've achieved, and I did pretty well. And it was quite funny because the guy next to me, Tiago Pereira from Brazil, was one of the only kind of medal hopes for Brazil. We're in Brazil, and there's thousands of fans, and usually before swimming race, it's like, it's quiet, right? It's like dead quiet. Yeah. The whole crowd, Tiago, for about 3 minutes, and I'm standing there like, come on, I'm ready to get in. I'm getting a bit cold.
We're looking for soul tires.
Yeah, like,
please.
Where's the Scottish flags? So the energy was just wild. So he went out really fast, and he actually kind of brought me out with him. So we both went out a bit too fast, but it was amazing kind of cherry on the top moment for me, and to race. Like, I had 2 races both against Michael Phelps. Like, I think that's a bit unfair, to be honest, but
it was an unfortunate draw.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate draw, but I loved it. And looking back on that, the results I got from Rio were amazing, and then the experience of like the village and being an Olympian and being over there for 4 weeks was phenomenal.
Mate, what a story.
I know.
What a story.
It's not bad.
So I think that's quite a neat place to jump off and unpack what happened next, which is essentially the big challenge, which is the weight of gold/silver in this case, but the weight of a career that is very monostructural, and transitioning out of it into horizons new. So thank you very much for listening, everyone. We thoroughly enjoyed that. And don't stick around, wait a week, and then listen to episode 2. Or if you're listening to this at some point in the future, then it should already be there. So just a reminder to do all of the podcasty stuff. Follow or subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on, please. And check us out on YouTube. Check out social channels that are linked in the show notes. Links in there as well. We say this enough. Just do it all. If you haven't done it yet already, then I wouldn't need to keep saying it. So thank you and goodbye.
Goodbye.
Cheers.